Hey, it's Ryan with Upfit Supply, and in this video we're going to be installing a Holman 3-tier tank rack in our RAM ProMaster. Let's get started. Real quick before we get started, Holman does a great job of giving you a fully illustrated installation guide with the product in the box, so make sure that you reference those when installing this. We're doing our best to follow those, but look to that installation instructions for the ultimate installation advice. Now, this installation is pretty straightforward. We're basically going to have 2 connections to attach it to the wall and then 4 connections to attach it to the floor. Now, in our particular case, we're going to be mounting it here at the side sliding door in our RAM ProMaster. High roof installation is going to vary from vehicle to vehicle, and of course, it's going to vary depending on where you put it inside the van. So we're actually going to be putting this at the side sliding door in a sideways rotation. Now, the installation instructions don't mention this sideways rotation, but it is a good orientation if you want quick access to these tanks when you open up the side sliding door. So we're still going to be doing our left and right connection into the wall and our 4 connections into the floor. It's just going to be rotated. So the first thing that we're going to do is move this tank rack into the location where we want to mount it, so we can mark on the floor and on the wall where we need to put our mounting locations or our plus nuts so we can attach our brackets. Now, one thing to note in our ProMaster is we do have a Legend stability floor, which is about a ½ an inch, and it is a floating floor, so we don't want to sandwich this floor up against the floor of the van and between the bottom side of this tank rack. So we're going to be using 2 spacers. So this is technically going to be sitting like a little bit above the floor so that the floor can still float and expand and contract and all that. So it's going to be a little bit different if you're just installing this in, a traditional floor or just on the sheet metal or something like that. They do include spacers in the kit. They look like this. They give you 4 of them, and usually you're going to use these if there's a ridge or a rib in the floor at one mounting location and there isn't on another, so you can basically even it out with about a 3/8 of an inch spacer so that your tank rack is sitting level. All right, so let's go ahead and move this into our location. Again, we're putting it here at the side sliding door for easy access. I also have a folding shelf here on the left side of the van as well, so this is going to butt up right up against that shelf, and then we're going to put our mounting locations into the floor and into the wall. I'm just making sure that this sits evenly up against the floor, and I'm going to have plenty of room for my locations. So you've got this mounting plate right here on the left and the right side of this tank rack, and that's where you're going to attach your included brackets to this. And typically, if this was rotated 90 degrees, you would have a bracket coming off like this, and you'd have it would connect to the wall like this with another angle bracket. Now, because ours is rotated, we're going to do this a little bit differently. We're going to attach on the left and the right side still, but we don't need to use these angle brackets. I'm going to tie into one of these holes right here. They're about at the same level of that location right there. And to do that, I do need to use some type of a spacer, so I've got one here. This one looks like it's a little bit too thick, but you get the idea. It's going to go right in there. We have a nice secure metal on metal contact with the wall right there, and then I'll do something similar on the backside. Okay, now that I have this in place, I'm going to take a grease pen so I can mark on the floor where I need to put my drilling locations. And as always, when drilling into the floor, you want to make sure that you have clearance underneath the floor of the van to be able to put a plus nut there and drill a hole, and you're not going to hit a gas line, a fuel tank, anything like that. So you're going to make sure that you double check these underneath the van, make sure that it's safe. If you have an EV, your battery's there, so you're not going to be attaching this to the floor in that location. In fact, you're probably going to go to a professional installer to have this done in your floor. Now, again, I have a thick floor here, plastic floor, so I do need to use a hole saw to get a hole through the floor first. Then I'm going to take out a 3/8 inch drill bit to do my hole for the actual plus nut. So now I'm going to be drilling in my holes for the plus nuts, and I'm using a 3/8 inch, which is a little bit smaller than what installation instructions call for, but they call for a pretty unique drill bit size, which isn't common. So when we put in our plus nuts, we actually have to shove them through that hole a little bit using a rubber mallet, or I can just get them through by hand. We're gonna drill these holes now. I do have a drill stop on here, so we're not gonna go too deep, but we are safe beneath the floor here. Now on the wall here, or the C-pillar, if you will, you do have a kind of rectangular hole here that we can put a plus in, and I just need to expand it a little bit. So now we're going to be setting our plus nuts. I'm using a handheld plus nut tool. Holman also sells a plus nut tool that's essentially just a bolt and then a little mandrel that you can use by hand to crimp one of these onto the sheet metal, or you can use a tool like this one. They also make an air tool as well, but these are relatively easy to set once you have the right tool. So again, I'm using 2 spacers here. They only give you 4 spacers in the kit, so I'm having to use a couple of my own. Go ahead and move this into place. So we've got the typical bolting pattern of a bolt, lock, washer, washer, then in through everything into the plus nut. I'm going to tighten up the floor first so that I can get this nice and snug against the floor, and then I can make sure I'm good for my wall brackets. That just about completes the installation of this rack. Again, we have 2 securing locations to the wall on either side of the rack, and then 4 into the floor. That's really what you want for the most secure attachment to the vehicle. Again, there's a bunch of different ways that this can be mounted, different locations, and so on. So it's really up to you to figure out the best way to mount this so that you can get it where you want it and have it be safe and securely attached to the van. Now, if you're looking for this tank rack or any other equipment to get your van ready for work, be sure to check us out at upfitsupply.com. Again, my name is Ryan, and have a good one.